church, Lori just whispers in my ear. She's like my conscience here. She's like, roll call. You're supposed to do roll call first, roll call. So let's do roll call, Lori, if you would.
Mr. Bradbury, Mr. Kluwat, Mr. D'Artes, Mr. Durbin, Mr. Falk, Mr. Gallagher, here. Mr. Gissel, here. Representative James, here. Mr. Knapp, here. Senator Morrish, Mayor Norris, Mr. Olivier, here. Mr. Pearson, Representative Pope, Mr. Riley, Dr. Richardson, here. Mayor President Robideau, Representative Shadowin, Commissioner Strain, here. Mayor Tyler, here. Dr. Wilson, Ms. Wyatt,
here.
Madam Chair, we have 9 members present. We do not have a quorum.
And Ted, I don't want you to take this personally because we know that you come here every Sunday. Almost every. You best say every Sunday, son. You best say every son. Today doesn't count. And so we don't want you to be offended. We don't have a quorum, but that's okay. We're still going to carry on the meeting. All right, so let's see. When Pastor Williams comes, we'll know, and we're going to ask him to say a few words. We thank Pastor Raymond Jetson for his service to this task force. And we have a new task force member, Daryl Gissel. And I'm going to put him on the spot and see if he wants to say a few words because.
I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve and look forward to meeting and working with everybody on the board. Thank you.
We welcome you, and we say a fond farewell to Raymond Jackson. We decided to hold this task force here in North Baton Rouge because using our data analysis, over 46% of the flood victims in this area with FEMA verified loss have not filled out the Restore Louisiana Homeowner Assistance Program survey, and we really do want that to happen. That calculates to 11,439 missing surveys. So if you could and would put the word out, fill out the surveys, because almost 50% of folks here have not filled out the information. As some of you may have noticed upon arriving for this meeting, there are tables set up in the reception area of the church. At one table are representatives from the Homeowners Association Assistance Program who can help submit surveys and answer questions homeowners may have. The other table has representatives from Southeast Louisiana Legal Services and Southern University Law Center to provide information and assistance to homeowners who have legal issues such as inherited properties, title issues, etc. It is heartening to begin another task force meeting with a positive update on the additional families who have been served through the Restore Louisiana Homeowners Program. We now have over 31,000 flood victims who have completed the Restore Louisiana Homeowners Assistance Program survey. While we're excited that this number continues to grow, we know that there are still nearly 20,000 families out there who are eligible for program assistance who have not completed the survey. So we'll continue our outreach, and again, I'm imploring you all to help us with that. So we'll continue to get those who have not taken the initial survey. More than 16,000 environmental reviews have been completed. All Phase 1 and Phase 2 and more than half of Phase 3 have been invited into the application process. That calculates to 7,485 flood victims moving into the application process, of which more than 3,200 of those applications are complete. Please let that not be my phone. As of last week, 25 flood victims received awards through the Homeowners Assistance Program. That equates to over $850,000 of the funds allocated to Louisiana, getting out to our Louisiana homeowners. By the end of this week, we expect that number to rise to 55 flood victims, totaling $1.87 million. With all the numbers I just went through, substantial and meaningful strides have been made since our last meeting. During the meeting, Pat Forbes with the Office of Community Development will provide updates on the homeowner, small business, rental, and FEMA PA match programs. I'll close my opening remarks with these extremely important reminders. If you are a homeowner and were impacted by the March and August floods of 2016, please take the homeowner flood damage survey. I don't think I can say that anymore, because it is for your well-being. It does not matter where you are in the process, in your rebuilding process. We need to know what kind of help you need in recovery. This is also the first step in applying and qualifying for assistance. Please visit restore.la.gov. I'll say it again, restore.la.gov. We are here for you, however you need us to be. Okay? So we will start the meeting with, what do we have? Chairperson, Governor's update with Aaron. Maybe not.
Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Restore Louisiana Task Force. I also want to thank Pastor Eric Williams for opening the doors of Beacon Light for today's task force meeting. Governor Edwards has often talked about his faith and has continued to ask citizens across the state to join their prayers with his prayers as we bind together in support of a full statewide recovery from the devastating floods of 2016. The governor is currently attending the National Governors Association Conference in Rhode Island, where he is sharing the state's work to develop sound flooding resiliency and mitigation strategies. Governor Edwards will join Governor Asa Hutchinson on tomorrow in co-facilitating a session entitled Preparing for the Extreme, Building Resilient Communities. The two guest speakers for this session will include FEMA Administrator Brock Long and Michael Berkowitz, President of 100 Resilient Cities and a Managing Director of the Rockefeller Foundation. Now, the governor will shed light on the glaring gap between immediate disaster mass sheltering options and long-term recovery housing options. He will also share the work of GOSEP to develop a volunteer and donated resources training program that will support parishes, municipalities, volunteer organizations across the state during times of disaster. This volunteer engagement strategy will promote resiliency by empowering communities to take an active role in disaster preparedness and recovery while simultaneously lessening their financial burden through the utilization of volunteer offsets. The governor will also promote the work of the Louisiana Business Emergency Operations Center to provide disaster-specific communications from GOSEP to industry associations and almost 2,200 registered member organizations and businesses. Finally, the governor will share the state's current and future mitigation efforts focused primarily on watershed planning. Now, at our last meeting, the task force approved a recommended allocation of $9.8 million toward watershed planning or infrastructure enhancement. We will follow up that conversation from last month with a briefing today by FEMA on its watershed study and an update on the Comite River Diversion Project. As the chair noted in her opening remarks, we are continuing to encourage those impacted by the 2016 floods to visit with their families, visit with their friends, and again, ask that they take and complete the homeowner flood damage survey. It is necessary to complete the survey in order to participate in any of these programs. Now, homeowners can access the survey. Again, we want to make sure they go to the website. That's restore.la.gov. And they can also call our 1-800 number. It's 1-866-735-2000. That number is available Monday through Friday from 8 to 6 p.m. Case managers will gladly help homeowners complete the survey and answer any questions they may have throughout this process. Now, beginning next week, the Restore program will continue its statewide outreach tour to assist homeowners with the survey and application process. Events were held this week in Monroe and Shreveport. They have proven very successful, and the program will continue to make the process as accessible as possible to those who were impacted and are working hard every day to recover and rebuild. We have 4 homeowner assistance centers open across the state to help all flood-impacted residents as well. These centers are located in Baton Rouge, Monroe, Lafayette, and Hammond. And we also know that there are those impacted by the flood who want to seek help but are uncertain whether the program will provide any assistance to them because they lived in the home of a loved one and never obtained legal title to the property. So again, we know that the Kellogg Foundation, the Baton Rouge Area Foundation, they've done a lot of work in terms of providing grant monies to Appleseed, the Southern University Law Center, and Southeast Legal Services to provide free legal help for homeowners with title problems. And we encourage you, as the chair mentioned, those folks are outside the door. So please, if you need help, you've not been able to gain a title to a property, please get that assistance. And finally, I want to close again by encouraging those in attendance and those participating by the live stream to reach out to our office so that we can help with any services you may need. And that concludes my remarks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Erin. Any questions from the task force? Good. Adam Knapp.
Ms. Whaley, thank you for being here. Any additional conversations or probabilities for additional appropriations and on the Hill, what have the conversations been like between the governor and the delegation about additional rounds of appropriations?
We're still having those conversations. As I mentioned, he's meeting with Administrator Brock to talk through potential changes to the Stafford Act and other kind of legislative approaches. But on the financial side, we're thinking about a fall kind of allocation or appropriation process. So we know that Congressman Scalise has been taking the lead on that. Obviously, he's been in and out due to his health. But we're working not only with Congressman Scalise, but the entire delegation. So we're still trying to think through what that approach looks like. And again, a big part of that is ensuring that the dollars that we have, that they're being expended appropriately. And so that's why we're encouraging all those folks who've been impacted. We have to get them to complete that survey process to get those dollars out the door and then to properly request an additional allocation. So we're still thinking through the strategy around it.
That makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Any idea how the title cleanup process has gone? How many people have applied and how many people have
I don't have a sense in terms of numbers. We can certainly ask some of the folks that are outside to maybe share with us the progress toward that. But I know there's been a great lot of support, particularly from the Southern University Law Center. I know they've been in and out working with that clinic, but I don't have a sense in terms of how many folks have been helped. I don't know that number. Yes.
What is the status of the funding that was going to be made available for the matching for public assistance? Because I know I've got a number of mayors. I thought maybe.
Okay. I think Pat Forbes is going to address that in his comments.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Thank you,
Thank you.
Erin. Appreciate it. And I understand that Pastor Williams is here. And we cannot come into the place that God chose you to lead and not have you do an opening prayer. Oh yeah, put you on the spot.
Madam Chair, can I make some, before he prays, I want to welcome you guys. It's already been alluded to that this is my church, but it's also District 10115. This is my district and Senator Barrow's district as well. And this church, the week before the flood, we had a service. We had just renovated. We had one service here, and then the flood, we had about 6 feet in here, Pastor. And then our pastor worked extremely hard, not only to bring the church back, but he was almost giving out sheetrock to folks, not only in our church, but in this community. And we were back here on November 20th. So he worked extremely hard to get us back here. And I want to publicly thank him for his work, not only in these walls, but throughout our community. I didn't grow up in this church. I met him. Yeah.
Absolutely.
One of the blessings about campaigning, you get to visit a lot of churches. And I didn't grow up in this church. I spent most of my life in another church, but I met him and continued to come back. And through his and our relationship, not only as a pastor, but a friend, now my wife and I, we are members here. So I want to publicly thank him for not only what he's done for the community, but the blessing that he's been to my family.
Thank you.
How are you? Let's just pray together. Let's pray together. Father, we thank you now for this day that you have made. And God, we thank you now for the city of Baton Rouge. We thank you, God, that your hand is still truly upon this city. And so, Father, we thank you now for all of these families, all of those who are represented today. We thank you now for the great leadership that you have blessed us with in this city. So, Father, we ask now, of course, that the vision that you have for this city shall be carried out. So, Father, we thank you now that let everything today be done decently and in order. And we ask now, God, for your wisdom. We ask now for your direction. But most of all, God, we thank you for your compassion. We ask now that you will bless us as we continue today. Watch over us and keep us. We ask all of these blessings in your darling son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you so much. Now, how blessed are we? So we're now going to move on to Patrick Forbes. Oh, I love baby's voice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I too would like to thank Pastor Williams for sharing this space with us. It's fantastic. It's exciting to be in North Baton Rouge. We have not had a meeting up here yet, and I'm thrilled to be here. What I plan to do today, if you could go to the next slide, please, is for the most part walk through status on the programs that you all already know so much about. I'll recap on each one, a little bit about what our mission is in each of those programs, but try to give you just a high-level view of where we are in each one. As we wind up saying over and over and over again to folks, this process takes entirely too long and nothing can be fast enough, but we can at least talk about where we are and where we hope to be in the next month or so as these programs roll out. So we'll cover each of the programs, including homeowner, rental, small business, farm recovery, and the FEMA PA match. Next slide, please. On the homeowner program, next slide, please. Thank you. On the homeowner program, as you know, we have $1.3 billion in that. That's the lion's share of the funds that we have available. Our program objective is to provide assistance to as many homeowners as we can from the March and August floods to get neighborhoods back by getting people back in their homes. Eligible applicants, they have to have owned and occupied their homes at the time of the flood, experienced major or severe damage, and did not have flood insurance, with one exception now, and have an eligible unmet need. That exception is by virtue of the action plan amendment that you approved at our last meeting, that allows us, we put most of the money from the $51 million that we got from HUD in this last allocation into homeowner program, allowing us to reach now folks who have insurance and are in phase one by other criteria. That is low to moderate income and either elderly or having a person with disabilities living in the family. So we hope to continue to expand to more groups with flood insurance. We have heard loud and clear there are plenty of unmet needs out there. Now we will be able to start gathering some data about what those unmet needs are and see how much further we can go into that program. I should say, in talking about the action plan amendment, we still do not have the Federal Register notice that we anticipated shortly at the last meeting. We've developed the action plan amendment, all the unmet needs revisions and all that are sitting on go, but the HUD has not published the Federal Register notice yet. Next slide, please. Surveys, I know everybody has been very cognizant of where we are on the survey process. We're now over 31,000. I think it's over 31,500 today. It's a pretty good bump. I think that we are starting to see sort of a critical mass. We're starting to reach a critical mass from all the different outreach approaches that I will discuss in a few minutes. We've had almost 7,500 homeowners invited to apply. That's from all of Phase 1, Phase 2, and about half of Phase 3 survey completions have been invited to apply. We have executed, as of last week, $850,000 worth of awards. By the end of the day today, I think we expect to be up close to $2 million in grants. That is, again, it's a very small number, but it at least indicates that our processes are in place and we are starting to move folks through that pipeline. I'll talk about some of the numbers here in just a bit. Next slide, please. For immediate program goals, completing the program ramp up to be able to process in the neighborhood of 700 applications a week and with about 350 awards per week. Right now, our process is resulting in about a 50% dropout rate from application through to award. We don't know if that's going to hold. We got a very small sample right now to base that on, but we're just going to, I mean, that's our estimate for now, and as we get better data, we'll adjust that estimate and obviously adjust our personnel and where they're working. We got about 250 people working on the homeowner program right now. A big chunk of that is inspections. That's, if you will, the long pole in the tent right now is getting homeowner inspections and damage estimates completed so that we can fill this process up, and that's really where most of our efforts are right now, making sure that we streamline that to the extent possible. With respect to outreach, we are driving survey responses and application completions. Look, that one's got a stand. Through several methods. We talked about this strategy when we first started of doing emails and the very inexpensive things first and then starting to go from there. We're now on our second round of public service announcements. Those will go through August 19th. We expect people in the impacted areas to get at least 3 to 5 views or listens on those PSAs before this is all said and done. We have kicked off the door-to-door campaign. That will start next week. We know the addresses, obviously, of the folks who have not completed the survey who we think should, and so they will be getting knocks on their doors with folks asking them if they want to fill out the survey. It's really literally a ground game now. We have billboards that have been up now. I think the biggest round of them started this week. Those will be up for some time now. Facebook, one really successful approach that we started this week is text messages to people who have filled out the survey but didn't take the next step once they were invited to apply. And that was hugely successful, and so we'll continue to follow up on that and just use the methods that prove to us that they are successful. Next slide, please. You can see some of the progress we've made on increasing the survey results there. Next slide, please. And I'm going to move to rental programs now. On the neighborhood landlord program, if you recall, that's a program with $45 million budget. We are trying to provide forgivable assistance to landlords to restore flood-damaged residences, to restore affordable housing stock. This program is eligible to developments with 7 or fewer units. Eligible applicants are for-profit landlords who owned flood-damaged properties at the time of the flood and still own them, nonprofit developers, and public housing authorities. Next slide, please. The one thing that we talked about last time was extending the deadline on this program. We have extended the deadline to August the 16th. The reason for that is that it's obvious that we need additional outreach to try to get this program better known. We still go around the state this is, whether it's the small business program, the landlord program, or the homeowner program for that matter, we still run into people who say, oh, I didn't know that existed. And so figuring out innovative ways to do outreach and reach the people who need the help continues to be a challenge for us. And so this application deadline extension is an opportunity for us to continue to perform that outreach. You can see what some of the things we've done: community meetings, letters to SBA recipients, letters to people who applied for SBA and did not get accepted into SBA, probably the more likely population to need the funding. And contingent commitment letters have been sent to eligible applicants. I will say that we will be reevaluating the policies approaching August 16th. We have this new deadline. We should get some idea at that point how successful our outreach is and how many people are coming into the program. And we can reset the product, we can reset the criteria. Those are always options for us that we'll consider. We just want to make sure that we have given these programs, which we expect to provide the biggest bang for the buck in terms of affordable rental for the dollar, all the opportunity that we think they need. An important advancement in this is the Capital Area Finance Authority is stepping in with some lending assistance. That's been one of the obstacles for some folks. And so we're talking with them not only about their money, but the potential of some of our funds to back up loans so that people can get the loans to get the work done and then get the money from our program. So we're continuing to look at other ways to make this program work better, and of course are always open to your and anyone else's input. I'm sorry, Robbie, did you want to cover something? Okay. Next slide, please. You can see some of the numbers here. I won't dwell on this, but this is covers nearly $11 million in applications, and it's by parish. Certainly some parishes are accessing the funds at a better clip than others, and that's going to be driven in part by knowledge at the local level, which we are trying to address on a daily basis.
And I'd also like to add, again, I'm Robbie Bezot, Director of Recovery Housing for Louisiana Housing Corporation. In the midst of us developing these slides, I have some great news that our numbers and applications received to date in office is now $12 million as opposed to the $10 million that you see on here. I was also able to reach out to the lenders that are currently interested in participating in our program, indicating what type of pipeline that they are currently serving that hasn't been submitted to the state yet, and they're working with about $6.2 million. So we're right around $19 million right now, either submitted through applications in office or either working in the pipeline to be submitted.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Moving on to the multifamily program. If you recall, this is it's a $49 million budget. The reason this number is not a round number like the other one is that, again, from your approval of the action plan amendment that you provided last meeting, we moved all of the rental funds that you approved into this program, because this program, if we can get it fully subscribed, appears to be easily the most cost-effective long-term affordable rental vehicle for us. So we moved all the funds into this program. Objective is to work with owners of 20 properties or more developments and get those back in service and at affordable rates to folks with low to moderate income. Eligible applicants are developers with existing affordable or mixed income, developers who are willing to convert over half of their units to affordable, or public housing authorities. And it should be clear, these are loans, but for the public housing authorities, they're completely forgivable. Next slide, please. The application, oh, certainly, yes, sir.
Let me ask a question, Pat, please. Last meeting, we had a discussion about nonprofits versus profits for affordable living, developing affordable living. You were going to make an inquiry through the Louisiana Housing Corporation about the status of that nonprofits versus for-profits, so that we get some more housing online.
Correct. So if you go back, that question was relative to the neighborhood landlord program. That particular question came from, it was actually regarding a proposed development with over 100 units. So it would not be eligible for this less than 7-unit program ever anyway. We have absolutely gone back, looked at, does it make sense for us to expand to for-profit for new construction at this point in time? And what we decided was, again, based on what I was saying earlier, we think that we need to perform more outreach, give this program with its current criteria more time to work before we do that. We're certainly not closing the door on the eventuality of that, but the fact is that the nonprofits, if they get our money and get the units back in service, their mission is providing long-term affordable rental for people of low to moderate income. We know from our experiences with Katrina Rita funding of for-profit developers, and it makes all the sense in the world. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it, but when the affordability requirement runs out, they go back to market rates, and that could be 5 years, 7 years, something like that. We firmly believe that we're going to get more affordable years of rent the more that we can subscribe these programs with the current criteria. We're certainly not closing the door. We've got to build affordable rental housing, and we know that, but what the conclusion we came to was that we wanted to extend this deadline and see where we are, and then make that decision at a later date. We didn't think we were prepared to do that in June. Okay. Is that completely okay?
Madam Chair, I have a question along the same lines, Pat. With the 35 units, are those rehab in Baton Rouge? Are those rehab or new construction?
It's probably a 75% new construction, 25% rehab. But I also want to make note that we're also running the city's entitlement sanction fund. It's called the Baton Rouge Rebuild Program, which is serving low to moderate landlords themselves, which is in addition to the units that you're seeing here. And I just want to make note that, when we're doing these on-the-ground outreaches specifically for the Rebuilds program, we're learning that we have some applicants that we can actually include in the landlord program. So it's a dual-purpose outreach that we're having with these. And, I'm on the ground meeting with these applicants, and this is the first time some of these applicants are hearing about the programs. I know that there's a serious issue that's going to be occurring with blight if we continue to not try to address some of the for-profits that own the properties during the time of the storm. I also reached out to Earl Randall with HUD, and he's confirmed that we're going to get with the HUD PR to start developing morning talk shows and recorded segments to go on TV, radio. Perfect example of the SBA letters that I sent out, and had an applicant come in just yesterday. We're working through her application. She received SBA. I checked my list. She would have received one of these SBA letters as of Monday, and she would have been indicated to come into this program. I think these methods of outreach are going to definitely get the word out there and solidify the fact that the current policies, I think, are effective to be able to be subscribed.
And Adam has a question too. Back to the nonprofit versus for-profit. Are for-profits prohibited from new construction and rehab, or just new construction?
Current policy in the action plan amendment says that for-profits are eligible to apply to this program if they owned the home at the time of the storm.
Development.
The
Development. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I didn't mean to just ask about Baton Rouge, but all of the parishes, what's the percentage of rehab versus new construction? Is it the same 25, 75?
It's right around there. And it's because the fact that we need to talk to these mom and pops and make them understand that this process is something that's going to be effective. I mean, the way that these policies are written right now, that it's essentially a really good deal for them. We're helping out two people. We're helping out the landlords and the tenants in the end. And this is an ability for them to have a rehab product, give a 5-year affordability to a tenant, and potentially have that forgiven as long as they abide by the policies.
And can we, in advance of August 16th, start to transition the program to include for-profits, so it doesn't have to come back to us for another approval? I'm very sensitive to the your affordability aspect, but again, I'm looking at 10.7 of 45. And if we have for-profits that could come in, I don't want us to go without making some strides.
We absolutely will be evaluating up till then. I'm not certain that pulling the trigger on it before then is appropriate. I think that what we really want is more information at this point. And if that information tells us we're going to spend all this money on nonprofits, then we may at that point come to you and say, look, we think the smartest thing to do is to leave it the way it is. But if it looks like we're just not going to hit the marks, then yes, we may come to you next meeting and say, let's roll it over and jigger the process a little bit so that we can get these things built.
Thanks, Pat.
We are on slide 11, going back to the multifamily program. On this one, application deadline extended to August 31st. We've got 10 applicants who were notified in June of their award status, conditional awards totaling $9.1 million. Again, as I alluded to earlier, this is 15,000. Oh, those were submitted today, Robbie said. $15,000 a unit, really cost effective. The most important number here is it's approximately 2,300 people that'll be provided affordable rental through this, just through those applications, and obviously we hope to triple that. Next slide, please. We are also within rental, is, if you recall, we put the vast majority of the funds to building affordable rental housing stock, but we also recognize that there are severe dangers of people becoming homeless as we go through this process between short-term housing and long-term housing. And so 2 programs that you approved were rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing, both of which include not only rental assistance but some wraparound services depending on the needs of the folks being served. And the objective is providing rental assistance to low and very low income renters so that they don't become homeless. Eligible applicants are vulnerable low to moderate income renters who were displaced by the floods. On rapid rehousing, you can see the numbers there of productivity and success. It's important to note here that the action plan amendment that came before the most recent one that you approved, that we submitted to HUD to alter our eligibility criteria for the rapid rehousing program, allowed us to continue paying for hotels for people who are in the TSA program who would otherwise have potentially become homeless. And it will continue to do that and pay for rents for people rolling out of the TSA program until they can get into a more permanent housing situation. The program is ramping up. It will ultimately be over a couple of years that the funds will all be expended. You can see 125 households have been placed in units so far. 76 looking for housing. Nicole, anything I'm leaving out? Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Oh, one more slide, please. Permanent supportive. Okay. Permanent supportive housing is for folks who might have mental health care, other issues where they need other services in addition to housing. Participants in the rapid rehousing program are being vetted and screened for whether they may need, in fact, permanent supportive housing assistance. That program works in conjunction with Department of Health and to ensure that healthcare services are provided in that wraparound fashion. The Housing Authority, Louisiana Housing Authority, for which Nicole works, is in the early stages of expanding project-based vouchers so that we can have some of these folks start to move into some of those project-based voucher units. That provides a long-term, permanent housing situation for somebody who might not otherwise have had that opportunity. And we're expected to serve 30 to 40 households by the middle of next month.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't plug the landlord program and the multifamily program. We do have one-pagers in the back for those in the audience that are unaware of the program and more information, and I will be here till the end to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Before these two smart folks step down, any questions further on rental programs?
Or homeowners? Either one? None? Hearing none, thank you.
Moving on, next slide, 15, please. To economic development programs. Total budget of $51.2 million in the small business loan program. The objective is provide partially forgivable loan assistance to small businesses for eligible non-construction activities. I think everybody remembers the reason for the non-construction requirement relative to some federal rules around construction and environmental review. Eligible applicants are small businesses with 50 or fewer employees and greater than $25,000 in revenues and experienced either a physical or a financial impact from the floods of March or August. Next slide, please. The application window for essential services was from May 26th to June 30th, and applications after that deadline, of course, essential services may continue to apply, but that restriction on applicants was removed on June 30th. So now all types of businesses are eligible, and the program is open to them now and accepting applications on a first-come, first-served basis. As of July 10th, we've had 950 inquiries and 107 applications received, and 26 of those completed. Is that right, or is it in addition? Okay. And survey postcards are going to be sent out to all SBA applicants by the end of this month. That is to hit the group of folks who applied for SBA, didn't get the funds. Obviously, they were impacted and still have a need, so that should be a target-rich environment for us. And then when we get to August, mid-August, we're going to reevaluate again, same as landlord program. Where are we? Are we being subscribed? Is our outreach working? Are there aspects of it that are working and aspects not? If you go to the next slide, please.
Pat,
Yes, sir.
question on this small business program. These are decisions that the Office of Community Development is making.
About extensions?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Or about the actual granting of the loans or the granting of the subsidies.
Our lenders are receiving applications, and based on the guidelines that the program established, they are making the decisions regarding eligibility through those guidelines. So the lenders are reviewing the applications and making the decisions.
Okay, sorry, the lender, okay.
Everybody remembers that this program is administered through 5 nonprofit lenders around the state, right, who administer the loans. They work with the businesses locally. They also did all the initial outreach because those are they're closest to the folks who might need this assistance. But on top of that, after the first month or so, we started rolling out efforts at the state level to impact homeowners, outreach to to businesses so that we can sort of layer over the efforts of those local nonprofits and hit this from a statewide basis. The survey will be out in the next 2 weeks, as I said earlier. What we expect to do is give this process about 60 days, come back, reassess the product, We've already heard from many members of the task force who are on the recovery support function for economic development with concerns about, are we doing everything we can to reach these folks? Is the product the right product? Are we in the right place? Appreciate the input. And what we want to do is keep this outreach going, figure out what's working in it and what's not, redouble our efforts where it's working. And at that point in a couple of months, look and say, okay, is the product right, or do we not have this right? Or I think
Chair recognizes Adam Knapp.
Thank you. Our subcommittee of this task force on economic development had a meeting last week. Mr. Olivier, myself, Sean Riley, and Secretary Pearson from the task force are the economic development subcommittee. Would welcome anyone else who wants to participate. And obviously, I think anyone not on the task force or on that subcommittee but want to give input to the small business loan, we'd welcome it. We were really concerned, very concerned about the uptake rate. Staff have been responsive to that. 26 completed applications is wholly inadequate for the program. We recognized that we don't know a whole lot about the status of small business recovery. There's very little good data available about the impact and the recovery rate of small businesses across the state. And if this is the primary tool that the OCD and the state have to go out and do what SBA business loans were unable to do, or to supplement what they were able to do, if this is not working, we definitely need to pivot. If you can do the math on the number of applicants and the amount of available funds, we've got a long way to go before the $51 million set aside for small business services could be even potentially be reached. And so what Pat illustrated and went through remains very important. More marketing now that the program has been broadened to all types of small businesses. So those in the room who have networks to small businesses, please help us share the availability of this program to small businesses in your communities. Hold hearings, hold public meetings. We've been talking to our peers in the Chamber of Commerce world across the state to make sure they're doing more to get businesses in or share news about how the program works. Second is this survey that Pat and Ms. Davenport described, is that really trying to find a way to understand the rate of recovery, the challenges businesses are facing. Third is there's going to be a series of meetings to try to gather input about program design, meeting with commercial lenders in the communities, credit unions, other banks that have personal relationships with businesses to find out the status of their clients, show them the program design, and ask them if there are any modifications that should be made to the program design, or kind of go in a completely different direction than has been made. And the sense was this all needs to be happening in the next 30 to 60 days to make a pivot as quickly as possible if we need to do something differently, whether minor tweaks or whole changes to the program to try to make sure that we're doing what's necessary to be responsive to small businesses.
Thank you. I want to say how valuable that is for us. Of course, we get feedback from the lenders all the time about what things need to be changed, but having the task force subcommittee working on this.
I should add, there was a piece of the program that was for small business technical assistance to be provided through the small business development centers. We recognized last week in our conversation that that $800,000 has been held aside to piggyback essentially this loan program. We asked them to make a tweak to that to not just tie it to loans, but to start going out and providing technical assistance to any businesses, regardless if they want to take advantage of the loan program or not. That technical assistance can work with small businesses to think through their recovery, regardless of whether this is a good product for them or not. That was really the intention of that, was to be able to get out across the state. The Small Business Development Center network is a statewide network, north, south Louisiana, east, west, and that's a good means by which to get out and find out the status of businesses and potentially to help them learn about the program as well, that it is available to them should it be the right product for them. Again, this is a 0% interest loan up to $50,000, of which $10,000 can be potentially forgivable. So it can be essentially the form of a grant. So that's a hugely different tool than what the SBA had been providing before, and might really be helpful on small businesses to be able to get some services out there.
Thank you. Any other questions on small business program? Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you. Oh, yeah. The Louisiana Farm Recovery Grant Program. This is has a $10 million budget, and it provides grant assistance to farmers to help them recover from the floods of 2016. The program is 100% grants, and the eligible applicants are farmers who experience crop or livestock losses in either March or August floods, and they had to have a certain threshold of income from those farming activities in that year. Next slide, please. Commissioner Strain, want to thank you and your folks for the great effort they've been making on rolling this program out. They have scheduled workshops across the state. They anticipate making contact with about 875 farmers at these events across the state. There are lots of additional sources of outreach that you see there, and of course the Department of Agriculture is extremely familiar with all these folks. Next slide, please. So the way the program will roll out is, of course, $10 million is probably not enough to provide the maximum grant amount to everyone who applies. What they will do is follow this timeline you can see on the slide, and when they get to the application period and have closed applications, they'll see how many farmers have applied and distribute the funds among those farmers, so that it is likely that no farmers will wind up getting the max award, because we expect it to be oversubscribed. Our experience after Gustav and Ike is reflective of what we experience here. Any questions on farm program? Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I would just like, again, our farmers are very, very appreciative of what we're doing. It is, it is a small amount of money compared to the overall losses, but it will help dramatically. And the idea, again, is to get them back in business, to keep these communities in business. We had 3 meetings yesterday in Welch, Louisiana, in Crowley, Opelousas. Today we're meeting in Hammond, and then we're going to start meeting Central and North Louisiana. So I know before I left yesterday, there were over 70 farmers at Welch, in that small little community. So we do expect numbers at Crowley and Opelousas, and of course in Hammond, and we are now going to name those next meeting sites in Central and North Louisiana. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Thank you. Moving on to infrastructure, the first program is the FEMA Public Assistance Cost Share Match Program. If you recall, this is $105 million. It is to cover the 10 and 25% matches for the August and March floods, respectively, for all government and nonprofit entities who are eligible for public assistance. $105 million is based on our best estimate, rather FEMA's best estimate at the time of what the total public assistance grant will be. That looks like it may be going down just a little bit right now, so we may wind up with additional funds available here to move, but it's too soon to tell that right now. Next slide, please. We currently have staff at the OCD reviewing FEMA project worksheets. This is really a world that we have not gone into before, and so it's a learning experience for us. We're developing a close working relationship with GOSEP so that we can streamline this as much as possible. I will say again, our objective is to make this as easy as possible for those nonprofit government entities so that they have to do very little, hopefully just sign a piece of paper. We are doing everything we can to break the bureaucracy down and make this easy. That hasn't been successful at the federal level. We were hoping for some adjustments between FEMA and HUD with respect to requirements for documentation. We're still waiting for a few of those to be resolved, but a few of them have been resolved not in our favor. Be that as it may, we're going to deliver the program. We're going to get the funds out. We have already delivered some funds. If you go to the next slide, please. To state agencies where it was easier for us to make we are looking at some Category A, Category B, and C through G project worksheets that will allow us to start getting money out fairly quickly to the local governments. We have done a couple of things within state government rules to help us do that a little more quickly. I do want to go back on the previous slide and just let you know that we will be meeting with those local governments. We're going to hold workshops, if you will, so that we can train those folks who will be dealing with these funds in the things they need to know to make it HUD eligible, because it's different, unfortunately, in many cases from what FEMA requirements are. So we're going to go out, do that education. Of course, we will continue to have outreach and availability of our program staff to help them understand the requirements of the program. And those are all the presentations I have. A couple of things I want to allude to. One is the $9.8 million that you all approved in the last action plan amendment for watershed assessments and studies. One of the presentations that you'll hear here shortly from Ms. Gibson with FEMA is about that study that I have been telling you about and some of the results of that. Really looking forward to working with them. I think that the announcement that the governor made on Monday relative to partnership between the Water Institute, the Gulf, and Deltares is going to be a huge